Welcome to Across the Goal Line. I am Godissart. Hopefully everybody is having a great day wherever you are at. In this video, I am going to be getting my Week 3 college football predictions. I'll recap Week 2 just a tad like I did last week, and get into Week 3 as we got another great slate of football games, college football this weekend. Seems like it's going to be the last weekend for non-conference matchups. You might get one or two, late in the season, but like I said, got another weekend of college football coming up. Last weekend, so like I said, seems like the last weekend for non-conference matchups. So I'll get into that here in a bit. But as I said, we'll recap Week 2 real quick. I went 12-4 this past weekend, with my only losses being the Nebraska game, as they lost to Oregon 42-35. Notre Dame, they lost to Georgia 20-19 at home in South Bend. Ohio State also lost at home to Oklahoma by a score of 31-16, and then Arizona also lost at home to the Houston Cougars by a score of 19-16. The other games I picked last week, I obviously got them right. I'm going to announce the scores to them right now. Iowa defeated Iowa State 44-41 in overtime. Michigan defeated the Cincinnati Bearcats 36-14. Louisville defeated North Carolina. Louisville and Lamar Jackson, as he had 500 plus total yards against Tar Heels this past Saturday. They defeated North Carolina 47-35. Penn State defeated 33-14. Alabama defeated Fresno State 41-10. TCU beat Arkansas on the road 28-7. Oregon defeated Nebraska, as I said, 42-35. After they were up by, I believe it was 4 touchdowns, they let the Nebraska squad come get back into the game. They let the Cornhuskers get back in and almost blew the lead, but they hung on to a 7-point victory. UCLA defeated Hawaii 56-23. Clemson defeated Auburn in a close one, 14-6. Georgia, as I said, defeated Notre Dame 2019. Oklahoma also defeated Ohio State 31-16, like I said. USC defeated Stanford 42-24. Minnesota defeated Oregon State on the road in Corvallis 48-14. Really put it on the Beavers in the second half. Utah won the Holy War against BYU 19-13. Houston defeated Arizona 19-16, as I said. And then I thought, well, the best game of this past weekend, Washington State defeated Boise State at home 47-44 in 3 overtimes. I thought that was the best game. The biggest upset, I thought, was Eastern Michigan over Rutgers. And Rutgers also disappointed for me as well, just due to the fact, well, last Friday night, Week 1, they hosted Washington, who was in the college football playoff last year. They almost beat them at home, but then Week 2, 1 week later, you lose to Eastern Michigan, also at home. You know, it just doesn't add up. At least it hasn't added up in my head. I don't know how you can compete with one of the best teams in the country and then lose to one of the worst teams in the country the following weekend. And then, as I said, best game, Boise State, biggest upset. And the team that impressed me, though, was the Oklahoma Sooners. That go on the road into a hostile environment in Columbus at the Horseshoe. And, I mean, that was a close one. It was 3-3 at halftime, and it was going back and forth there early in the third quarter, but then fourth quarter came along, and Oklahoma just didn't step off the pedal at all, and they didn't run up the score, but they beat them 31-16, like I said. But I thought they really impressed especially on the road, especially after last season's 45-24 loss at home to Ohio State. They go on the road this year and defeat the Buckeyes. And then after the game, quarterback Baker Mayfield for the Oklahoma Sooners, planted the Oklahoma flag at the 50-yard line in the middle of the field, inside the O. I'm sure Ohio State fans are not happy about it. You know, I said before, I respect Ohio State. I respect, the rest of the Big Ten, being a Penn State fan. I thought it was somewhat disrespectful that he did that. We've seen that happen before. Michigan State, when they went on, and I believe it was 2004 or 5, they went into South Bend, defeated Notre Dame in 3 overtimes, and planted the Spartan flag, and also in the middle of the field at the 50-yard line, after they defeated Notre Dame. But like I said, I thought it was a little disrespectful. He did say he was sorry, and he didn't mean any harm by it. But, if he didn't mean any harm by it, then why the hell did you do it in the first place? That's the thing I don't understand. But Oklahoma did impress, and with that victory, they moved from being ranked 5th in the country to being ranked 2nd now, just one spot behind Alabama. So Alabama is 1, Oklahoma is 2, I believe Clemson is 3, USC is 4, and then Penn State is 5. So games this weekend then, I believe I have 14 instead of 16. Had 16 the past 2 weeks. I have 14 this weekend. One on Friday night down in Tampa, and then the rest are Saturday. So the first game then, which would be the Friday night game, Fighting Illini of Illinois go to Tampa Bay to play the South Florida Bulls. I normally would take the Big Ten team in this matchup, but I think South Florida, being ranked in the top 25, having a lot of talent left over from Willie Taggart, they bring in Charlie Strong. They're off to a hot start, somewhat, this year already. I know we're only 2 weeks into the year, but still, especially down in Florida right now, they're recovering from Hurricane Irma. Those fans that are going to be at the game, they're going to be pumped up to watch some football. So I'm going to take South Florida over Illinois. First game then on Saturday, Oklahoma State goes to Pitt. Last week I thought Pitt outplayed Penn State, yet Penn State still came out on top. Turnovers cost the Panthers 2 interceptions by Max Brown, and then by the time they started scoring, it was just a little too late. But I do like Oklahoma State. I like how they've been playing, but they're going on the road. We saw last year, probably the biggest game of the season last year for Pitt was hosting Penn State. I think this year, the Oklahoma State game in Pittsburgh for Pitt is their biggest home game. And Pitt defeated Penn State in that game last year. So I think Pitt will upset Oklahoma State this weekend. The game's at noon on ESPN. Notre Dame then goes to Boston College and take the Fighting Irish, coming off a tough loss this past weekend at home to the Georgia Bulldogs by 1 point. UCLA then goes to Memphis. Memphis has not played in 2 weeks. Their game this past weekend against Central Florida was canceled due to Hurricane Irma. The game will not be made up. So technically they had a bye. They'll get another one later in the year, but the difference is their game got canceled. They were preparing, game got canceled. It's not like, we weren't preparing, for 2 weeks ahead of time. We're preparing for Central Florida. Game gets canceled. It screws up some things, I think. I know it's being played in Memphis, but UCLA, especially coming off that 35-point comeback against Texas A&M at home 2 weeks ago on Sunday night, winning that game 45-44. and then defeating Hawaii at home this past weekend as well. I think UCLA goes on the road and picks up the win. Also down in Florida, Tennessee goes to Gainesville to play the Florida Gators. You know, this game I think really is a toss-up. Both teams are ranked at the lower end of the top 25. Whenever Lane Kiffin was coaching at Tennessee and Urban Meyer was still at Florida, this game it was the game that everybody wanted to watch because Lane Kiffin would always be talking smack leading up to the game, but then Florida would always kick Tennessee's ass. I think the same thing will happen this year. Tennessee. I shouldn't say Florida's going to kick Tennessee's ass. I think it's going to be a real close game, back and forth more than likely. Like I said, this is a toss-up for me. Florida 2 weeks ago they lost to Michigan in a neutral site game in Dallas late, and then Tennessee, and then Florida was off last week. They're supposed to host Colorado State, I believe it was. And that game was canceled due to Hurricane Irma. Tennessee, they played Georgia Tech in Atlanta 2 weeks ago. That they came back and won that game 42-41 in double overtime. But like I said, toss up for me. I'm going to take Florida, just because they're playing at home. They were off last week. So that kind of contradicts to what I said about Memphis. Florida's a better team than Memphis. I think McElwain will have them more prepared. So I think Florida will come out on top against the Volunteers on Saturday afternoon at 3:30 on CBS. SMU then goes to TCU. TCU went on the road last week to Fayetteville, defeated Arkansas. Maybe a favorite to win the Big 12 if Oklahoma, stumbles somewhere, or Oklahoma State stumbles somewhere throughout the season. So I think TCU is going to pick up the win against the Mustangs there. Wisconsin then goes to BYU, and maybe one of the best non-conference games of the season, other than that Florida State Alabama game week 1. But I'm going to go with Wisconsin in this matchup. Maybe the game of the week. Probably should save it for last, and I will save it for last. So I'll just move on now. I think LSU is going to be coming out on top of that. Oregon then goes to Wyoming in a what's the right word I'm going to use for this game? It's an interesting matchup. Wyoming go to Iowa week 1, lose 24-3. Oregon, they blew out Southern Utah, I believe, week 1 by like 60, and then they held on this past weekend against Nebraska at home, but they have to go on the road now. Wyoming's going to be fired up. They're getting a Pac-12 school coming into town and to play on their home. Josh Allen, a lot of people are still saying he's going to be the number 1 pick or one of the top picks in next year's NFL draft. But I don't think Wyoming's going to have enough in the tank to defeat the Oregon Ducks. Oregon's just going to be too fast for them, so I'm going to take Oregon in that game. Kansas State then goes to Vandy. I'm going to take AARP and Bill Snyder. Texas at USC in a rematch, the first meeting since the 2006 BCS National Championship game, in which Texas defeated USC 41-38 on a Vince Young touchdown with about 15 seconds left in the Rose Bowl. I think USC will get revenge. Texas, they lost a tough one to Maryland week 1 at home by 10, and then they blew out whoever the hell they played this past weekend, shut them out actually. And then USC, they had a close one against Stanford this past weekend after coming out. Well, they almost blew it against Western Michigan, but they finished strong. And then they came out this past weekend and pretty much took care of Stanford. It was a close one, like I said, but they pretty much took took care of Stanford. I am going to take USC though, to get revenge in this game against Texas on Saturday night on Fox. And then Ole Miss goes to California. I think the cross-country trip for the Rebels, especially with a new head coach. We all heard what happened with Hugh Freeze back in July. He resigned due to the prostitution scandal that was going on down there in Oxford. I think the cross-country trip, like I said, with new head coach, new quarterback, everything, I think it's just going to be too much. I think Cal's going to be ready, so I'm going to take Cal over the Rebs. And then Stanford goes to San Diego State. I think this game, possibly could be the game of the week, could be, the biggest upset. But I think Stanford, especially coming off the loss against USC this past weekend on the road, if you go on the road again, I think they'll. I think David Shaw will have them ready, and I think Stanford will defeat San Diego State. And then, like I said, the game of the week then, in my opinion, actually got moved from 3:30 to 8 o'clock on ABC due to Hurricane Irma, because Miami, Florida was supposed to go to Florida State. That game was supposed to be the 8 o'clock game on ABC. Game has been postponed until the middle of October. So then ESPN had to do some switching around with the games. They moved the game from 12 to 3:30 and moved this game from 3:30 to 8. So, really, I think this game probably should have been the 8 o'clock game to begin with, regardless of the hurricane that hit Florida. If they were going to postpone the game or not, that game probably should have been at 3:30. But it is what it is. Clemson and Louisville are now playing at 8 o'clock on ABC. The game is in Louisville, Kentucky this year. Last year's matchup on the 1st of October, one of the best games of the year. Clemson stopped Lamar Jackson, and Louisville 1 yard short of a first down as Louisville was driving. They're about on the 10-yard line, I believe, and about ready to score. And they stopped them short on 4th down, and Clemson ended up coming out on top in that one. Like I said, games in Louisville though this year, I think Louisville will get revenge. I think it's going to be a really, really good game. The game of the week, more than likely, other than that Stanford San Diego State game. And I think Louisville's going to come out on top. Lamar Jackson, everybody in the country will get to see he's still doing this year like he did last year. Like I said, last week he had over 500 total yards. I believe he had 125 on the ground and 350 passing, and I believe he had 6 touchdowns as well. But I think with his playmaking ability, it's just going to be too much for Clemson. I know they have some guys back from last year's squad, but they're going on the road, and Louisville is going to be Papa John's Stadium is going to be rocking, and I think Louisville is going to beat Clemson on Saturday night. So that's all the games I have for this week. Like I said, this is Across the Goal Line. I'm the Godissart. You can follow Across the Goal Line on all social media. Facebook, just search Across the Goal Line. Twitter and Instagram. You can follow at Across the Goal Line at ATGL16. Follow me on Twitter as well and on Instagram. My Twitter is at ColehandLuke96, and then my Instagram is Godissart96. All the links for those sites are in the description below, so be sure to go check that out. You can also subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already, and then give this video a thumbs up. Be sure to share it with your family and friends, and then be sure to also go check out my NFL Week 2 predictions, and that is the video that is right after this. Be sure to go check out all those sites and videos. I'll see everybody next week then with my college football Week 4 predictions, and then I'll do a recap as well, week 3, and give you my week 4 predictions, and then I'll also be doing a NFL video again next week. It's football season, so I'll be doing football every week. I don't think I need to say that. But I'll do an NFL week 3 predictions video then next week, and then WWE No Mercy is on September the 24th from Staples Center in Los Angeles, California. I will be giving you guys my predictions for that as well. So, but in the meantime, hopefully everybody at the end of the video is having a great day. Stay safe, and I'll see everybody later.